Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I am your host, Mike Veerman, and I am here with my friend and trusty producer, Max Kerman. Max, what's going on?
Hanging out, man, with my boys.
Yeah. We're also here with our friend and pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. Shane, what's up?
Hey, man. That's my intro, but I have a gift for you.
You have a gift from me?
Yes, it was your birthday.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to, I think, one of your favorite places, if not the favorite place.
I recently had a birthday on October 9th, same day as John Lennon and Sean Lennon, little known fact.
Ooh, weird.
Yeah, I think Yoko induced to get them on the same day. But anyway, I share that birthday, so it was the 9th. I am a Libra. And Shane, this is really nice. You're always springing things on the pod. You save everything for the pod.
Boom!
Ah! This is hilarious.
Explain what it is.
It is gift certificates to the Ballroom, which is a watering hole around the corner from Much Music, 299 Queen Street West. That,
You know, for the Hamilton guys, we look to the people that have lived in Toronto for recommendations, if we want to go out and watch the game, go to a bar, whatever. And inevitably, Mike will be asked, hey, where should we go? And he says, well, we could go to the Ballroom, as if it's like this new idea. But he's been saying it with this like level of intrigue in his voice for like the last 10 years. We could go to the bar. Did you know that there's drink specials between 4 and 7? And like everyone was like, yes, we know, Mike. You said
we
this.
always end up there.
We always go to the bar.
You could get a $4 vodka between 4 and 7. Who doesn't want to go to the Ballroom?
So it's kind of like the big joke.
Yeah.
Like we may go to these other options. But the reason there's 2 cards there is apparently no one's ever really gotten a Ballroom gift certificate before.
I've never seen these. This is hilarious.
No one knew they existed. I'm like, come on, they got to exist. They got this manager who I'd never seen before. And she's bumbling with it. And I said the amount, and they kind of misheard me, screwed it up. So that's why I got 2 cards.
I never buy presents for anybody. Now I make me feel bad, Shane. But I wish I was that kind of person that sprung gifts on people.
Shane's actually a pretty thoughtful gift buyer. You're actually really thoughtful in general. Like, you go all out. I'm not so good with that stuff.
You hear this, pod reviewers?
Yeah, right. He's a gentleman.
That's gentleman behavior.
Yeah, I remember for my 30th birthday, you what did you get me? You got me 30 types of liquor.
Yeah, and we masking taped them all together,
so
like
nice.
strapped it all together.
So it was like there was like girls' night out, sibling rivalry, like Coors Light, it was just 30 different types of alcohol. And me and you and my brother Greg sat at that apartment that they were living at the time with Sean Dawson, and we just drank it all.
Yeah, that was a fun night.
That was a great night.
It was the best
But
night.
it's a thoughtful gift.
Oh man,
Yeah.
What'd you get him? Just nothing?
nothing. I don't get anybody anything.
No, he did text me the day before my birthday to go, happy birthday, buddy.
Well, yeah, everyone's threw you kind of a surprise party, and I was left out of that, so I was like, fuck.
Okay, so the thing is, I never have been a birthday celebrator. You'd have to go back to I don't know, maybe my 14th birthday to for me to have a party for my birthday or whatever. It's usually like that, just a couple guys get together and drink. And our good friend Dan messaged me out of nowhere, and he's like, what are we doing for the weekend? And I was like, nothing. I don't know. But I guess he had an Airbnb in the city. I feel like Dan had ulterior things.
Oh, well, which I want to talk about,
Yeah.
actually.
And then he rolls that into let's have drinks for your birthday.
Yeah.
But then I get a text from Shane, who's head of the cottage. He's like, are you having a birthday party?
Yeah, Dan can sniff out any occasion to have a night out. So it's like if someone's birthday or the day before their birthday or their birth week, I could go out and have it. And the Leafs are good. The Raptors are about to start.
But you have secret knowledge that this definitely was an ulterior motive, right?
Yeah, which I kind of want to talk about.
Let's get to it.
So,
And Shane, you would not be left out of birthday drinks when it comes to me.
Well, I would hope not, because I had an option to go out that night. I could have either gone to the cottage on Friday afternoon or gone Saturday morning. I would have gone Saturday morning, just for Dan and Greg or whoever set this up.
Blame it on Dan. So let's hear about Dan's ulterior motives.
So a few weeks ago, I was driving up to Muskoka for my friend Dave Friesen's wedding. I couldn't go to the wedding, but I was there the day before, the pre-dinner thing. And we stop at Burger's Priest in Barrie, north of the city. We're with our friend Jocelyn, so it's Dan, Jossie, and I. And we're ordering our burgers. And then behind us in line, these 2 girls walk in, both sort of young and pretty, but one is especially striking.
Mm.
And I'm in a relationship, there's nothing going on for me. But I say to Dan, who's single, I said, Dan, you gotta talk to her. And when I'm on a car trip with Dan, I'm very giddy. Because we get all, we'll buy candy and we're drinking Monster energy drinks and we're just really happy to be around each other. Jossie's really good friend, happy to see her. We're yapping the whole way up. So I'm just super hyper. It's 1 in the afternoon. And so Dan's like, I don't want to do it. Because Dan's nervous. And Dan's usually pretty good at talking to girls, but keep in mind, it's like 1 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. So I said, Dan, I got the perfect plan. I don't know where this idea came from. Just came off the top of my head. I said, we're going to buy her an ice cream sandwich because Burger's Priest has awesome ice cream sandwiches. And you're going to deliver it to her. And you're just going to say, hey, dessert's on me. No. I said, Dan, you're going to say, I normally don't do this, but I'm feeling really romantic because I'm going to a wedding this weekend. Enjoy this ice cream sandwich. And you're going to write your name on a receipt and then give it to her. And then we're just going to walk out.
That's one of the best ideas I've ever heard, by the way.
Pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
So then Dan does exactly that, but he kind of stumbles over his words, and he's like, he's just like, hey, here's the ice cream sandwich.
His hands are getting cold.
Eat this dessert off me. What? Creep.
And so he kind of like throws it on the table, walks away, and then he like realized he didn't even say like his name or introduce or find out their names or anything like that. So he walks back immediately, like 5 seconds later. He's like, I'm Dan, and then the girl's like, I'm Emma, I'm Sarah. And so we're like, cool. Anyway, so we leave. Dan had a cool rental car. So like just leaving the Burger's Priest. The optics I thought were good because Dan looked good that day. Jossie's like a really nice, normal looking person. I'm a normal looking person. Yeah, because you sort of judge the crowd the person's hanging out with. I'm like, Dan, for sure we're going to get a 705 text tonight because Barrie is a 705 area code. So nothing happens on the Friday night. But on the Saturday, Dan went swimming in a pool with his cell phone in his pocket. So his cell phone was out of commission.
Oh,
but then he checked his computer, which is connected to his iMessage, and he gets a text from a 647 number saying, so I'm feeling a little romantic too. What's going on? How's the wedding? So then it's all very exciting. Fast forward to this Friday, and they've exchanged a few text messages, and it's revealed that these girls are hanging out on Queen Street East, and Mike and
So
Greg,
during Mike's birthday party,
yeah, during
this is
Mike's,
happening,
yeah.
right?
So when we talk about ulterior motives, there was something else cooking. Now the thing which is awesome is that this girl doesn't really text much, but her friends have all added Dan to Instagram, like immediately. And then Dan realized that one of them added him because he kind of figured out who was who, like the day they met. So clearly these girls are talking as much as we're talking, which makes us very happy to know that there's this like champagne girls group happening over there. Clearly screenshotting every message that they're sending to each other.
Well, the same thing was going on because Dan's texts were being ghostwritten by Mike.
Well, Max was the original ghostwriter.
I was ghostwriting.
He was the original.
Yeah. So I was the original ghostwriter of the text, and then you were out on Friday, and you were ghostwriting for him.
Yeah, but I was doing jokes, and I heard that you said, no, Dan, don't listen to Mike. You're trying to get a date, not write a late-night monologue.
Yeah, I did say that because there was so much Mike-isms in there, or just like, it was like, it could have been you or Greg or Shane, just like clearly, just like being really quick.
Well, this one specifically, the girl's like, what are you up to tonight? And Dan's like, oh, what should I write? He's like, Max isn't getting back to me. You were on the road. You were
yeah.
He's like, Max isn't getting back to me. And I'm like, well, I mean, if I were still single back in the day, I would like write something ridiculously like altruistic. Like, well, I'm going to help some orphans learn how to read. Then I'm going to donate some blood. I would say a bunch of those things and then be like, what are you up to this weekend? And then depending on the response, they either match that or they like
It's a good litmus test to see their humor.
do they
Yeah.
get it?
Yeah.
Do they not get it? Et cetera, et cetera. So he sends it and then you pipe in and you're like, do not send that
Don't
one.
send that. It's like, it's too late. It's out the door.
Yeah.
I was in LA, just like, no, you're ruining it.
And then I'm like, it took her like 25 minutes to get back, and I'm like, oh man, I blew it for Dan. I should have just
Boy,
let Max
didn't
keep
you
doing
become
it.
like indignant and be like, tell him this is Mike Veerman copy?
I did. Yeah. he goes, Max told me not to send it, but he said the late night show line. I'm like, you tell Max that's Mike Veerman copy, and he can kiss my ass.
And copy is like an industry term that we all use that means like solid writing, by the way.
Yeah, and everyone's like, what the f*** are you just talking about? But anyway, so it turns out all of her friends are ghostwriting her text.
Mm-hmm.
So
So it's kind of like a situation where his friends and her friends are just talking to each other, and Dan and Ice Cream Sarah haven't really said much
who
to
knows
one
if they have
another.
anything in common? Yeah.
No, they're both tall.
So anyway, I thought that was kind of exciting, and I thought as a romantic gesture, I recommend the ice cream sandwich thing. Buy a little dessert. People, send over drinks and stuff. That's cliche.
Straight out of a movie. You could see like Ryan Gosling pulling that.
Well,
It's
here's the
amazing.
thing. If they get married, that story is amazing for their wedding.
Oh my God. You
right?
think you'd be his best man?
I'd have to be.
Yeah.
Well, Greg might be mad, but
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I was excited about that.
Well, that's a nice little story.
Yeah.
Of hopefully love.
Yeah. But what else is going on, guys?
Well, are we
Are we obligated to talk about Harvey Weinstein? Is that like a thing?
We probably should.
There's a lot going on in the news. As you mentioned, Shane, Harvey Weinstein is a big movie producer, Miramax Films. You've definitely seen one of his movies if you are somebody who watches films. The New York Times and the New Yorker both came out with huge expose pieces detailing his, completely inappropriate and criminal behavior and abuse of power with countless women. Or a lot of women
For
anyway.
decades.
For decades. Sort of a pattern of behavior that maybe a lot of people in the industry sort of were aware of vaguely or maybe not so vaguely, and no one really stepped up. And efforts to report on this over the years have been quashed by Harvey, either through threatening legal action or, threatening to pull his ads from certain newspapers or publications. So he's been able to sort of control his own narrative for, like Max said, decades. That is no longer the case, and it's become a massive, massive media story that some people, a lot of people are speaking out. A lot of people are caught in the crosshairs. There's a lot of victims that are really hurting and sharing their stories very bravely. And, friend of the pod, Ann Donahue, sort of went viral on Twitter because she had said, share your Harvey Weinstein story, meaning like, where you felt powerless in a position, in a situation where maybe a man in a position of power, an employer or somebody that has a title that's higher than yours has made you feel uncomfortable either by through suggestion or physical touching or sexual harassment or much more. And her responses were immense. It was numerous. So many people shared their stories. It's like another one of those things where it's this depressing avalanche of shit, this is a thing. This is a thing that we knew was a thing, but it's so striking to just see it come pouring out of people. And how much does this happen? And how often are men in these positions taking advantage of underlings and people that really, are at a disadvantage?
A couple things that sort of stood out to me. And I'll preface what I'm about to say with, obviously, this is unacceptable behavior, and men need to do much better. Obama's daughter interned for the Weinstein Company.
That's correct.
This year. And so the idea of, everybody knew is sort of an interesting thing to think about, because it seemed like everybody knew that, he had women on the side, but it's not totally clear to what extent people knew that he manipulated them and
trapping them in hotel rooms.
Yeah, and was criminal about it, which is sort of...
That's an interesting facet. So what you're talking about now and what I found interesting about this is it's so in the past, what has happened is someone like this will fall from grace, their behavior is exposed, and we all sort of we kill that person, they lose everything in their life that matters to them. This is the first time I've really seen where the focus, and maybe it's because everyone around him is so prominent and famous, the focus is on who was silent, who stood by and allowed this to continue on. And to your point, George Clooney's statement was interesting. Did you read his statement? Yeah. Where he said, I'd always heard rumors that Harvey had slept with the women he put in his things, but I thought maybe that was just other people it was a way to diminish the talent of the actresses that got cast. Mm-hmm. So if most people sort of thought, oh, okay, he's sleeping with his actresses, does that mean that they're not sort of I guess I get what you're getting at. Are you saying the culpability of the bystanders?
Yeah, I'm just saying that it's Obama, Michelle, Barack and Michelle wouldn't have allowed their daughter to work for a guy who was a known pervert, and not even pervert, but a sexual assaulter. Is that what you call
Sexual predator.
Sexual predator. If the rumor had been that concrete that he went to that extent. I guess what I'm saying is that in a culture where there's whispering and people have a general sense of what's going on, it's I think this situation really proves that if someone raises a concern, especially a female, you have to listen to them, because if you don't listen to them, then the truth never won't get out for a long time. But as soon as somebody raises an issue, that's you have to open the investigation immediately, because a lot of people had just heard rumors, and it takes somebody brave to come forward, but it just took a long time for that to happen. Even if it did happen 20 years ago, Weinstein was that powerful that people were too afraid to do anything.
I guess lastly on Harvey in this terrible situation, do you think the enormity of this story and how much sort of people are paying attention to it will or has changed the culture? Does the culture change? Is it a slow change? Is this a thing we look back on and go, oh yeah, that changed the way that predatory bosses and people in position of power abused that?
Yeah, you hope so, because it always feels like when women do come forward, they're like, to me, they're heroes, and you think that might empower other women to do that, but it's probably a lot easier said than done, given the context of various people's jobs and the power dynamics within a work office.
Exactly.
I think so. Like we're talking about it. We're definitely even I've noticed the way we joke. Sometimes we joke differently in ways that we both understand that we're being more careful with the way we word things that typically maybe before we wouldn't.
The main reason this story is so popular is because it involves famous names, it involves actors, it involves movies we know. It's sort of like the pinnacle of pop culture. So what you would hope is that because of the dynamics of this story and why it reaches so much, the culture shift will permeate and go down towards, oh, I work in an office and my boss is lecherous. Like how, and it's like, no, you can't do that because now it is so omnipresent. And it's like, no, that shit no longer flies. So it's like maybe this one, because of the famous names involved, like Gwyneth Paltrow or Angelina Jolie or Cara Delevingne, it's like making statements saying, yes, I've had my Harvey moment with Harvey, and they share. Maybe that will empower people to like speak up and make these people think twice before, focusing on some intern or underling or someone that basically they, control their career so they feel like they can make a move romantically and hold that as leverage. Okay, so fellas, moving on.
Yes.
Today on the show, really good friend and the very first podcast ever,
Lightsy
is back.
She's back.
To talk about her new album and comic, Skin and Earth.
Yep. A lot of work because, and for our listeners, full disclosure, we share a manager, Ashley and Chris.
Ashley sits in on this interview.
Yeah. And so I've been in the know about what's been happening with this project for a long time, so I'm very excited.
Is Lights drawing these drawings?
Oh yeah, she does everything.
She does everything. The comics are really good, man. Like I'm not a comic guy, and like I got the first 3. I got into it. Like it's world building. She's got this whole it's great, man.
That's nuts.
Lights was cool. I mean, it was a funny dynamic because obviously you and Lights go way back. You guys share the manager. Ash is in the room. And so it starts with me, you, and Lights talking. And then Ash is piping in. And it was kind of just like a really fun hang and nice to revisit with her after, the first episode to now and talk about this project, which I was a huge fan of the comics.
We've all grown so much.
Yeah, me mostly in the torso area. And just want to know, we're gonna roll this interview. Basically, it was very conversational. Where Lights had just mentioned to us that she's flying into Vegas to do like a radio thing, so that's why we happen to be talking to Vegas when this interview starts. And why don't you just get to it?
Let's get to it. So it's just like an acoustic?
Yeah, it's like a 20-minute acoustic set for a radio station, Yeah, starting to do a bunch of those.
Been there.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what are you doing after that? Do you have to come back here?
Coming back here.
Nice.
Just in and out?
Yeah, like for the day, and then gonna hit the pool, and then do a gamble.
Like a gamble?
I'll do a gamble.
You sound like a pro when you say
Yeah,
that. I'm going
I
to go
am
to
a
Vegas
pro.
and do a gamble.
I'll try one gamble, and then come home.
That's pretty
What's your
Actually,
spending limit when you're at the
well, okay, I've gambled once. Came out on top by $10 because I spent like 5.
Hey,
Ooh.
doubled up.
I know,
Pretty
I
good.
doubled up, and know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away is what my motto is. So,
What's your game?
slots. I mean, that's all.
What's your game? The one where you pull the lever?
Brody told me about this game where you just like go 1 for 1 with a dude, I guess. Like it's like a card, and if you draw a higher card, you win. I might gamble on that because you don't need skill. And I don't
You just got to
have
get the right
any
cards.
skill,
Well, the skill is knowing when to walk away.
Is there skill in gambling though?
I think, well, for sure in like stuff like poker.
Right.
Whereas there's a lot of
Yeah.
strategy and
Sure.
sort of trying to figure out what's been seen so far. But I found with slots in Vegas that Wheel of Fortune is a huge winner.
Interesting.
Like I've played the Wheel of Fortune, you throw in like $20 and I've walked out of there with like 200.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
I once on my way out of Vegas, leaving the MGM to go to the airport, I
Yeah.
just put a 20 in and I hit it and I got $100.
Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune.
Making a note of that because
Yeah.
that will be my gamble for the trip.
It's great.
I always wonder how famous you have to be to get your own like slot machine. Like Ellen has her own slot
Does she?
machine. Yeah, which is
Interesting.
I was kind of surprised that she'd give her image to a casino.
Do they need your
something.
permission?
I imagine
Yeah,
so.
you probably get paid.
Yeah.
Maybe
for every pull.
Every
For every
pull.
pull, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
You get a cent
Royalties.
to pull. Now, here's a
Yeah.
question for you guys as prominent, very visible people. Would you allow yourselves to be on a
Slot machine.
No.
Yeah. See, Max took a little longer to think about this.
No, I don't think I would. One, because I'm not a gambler, and two, because we witnessed recently another band really get killed for partaking in a gambling endeavor.
Share names.
I will not. But,
Is this public knowledge?
it is public
So
knowledge.
people could Google it?
Yeah.
All right,
it's
tell
not-
me-
It wasn't like a news story, but it was just like in the comments.
It's
on
just
Facebook.
it's very much like a money move.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's no integrity in it necessarily. So it's just like, okay, we want money.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, Ellen, Centipole
Yeah.
or whatever, that's big money.
It's just like a hardcore capitalist play.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where's the artistry in it?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so give me the name.
Broken social scene. We'll edit it out.
Is that true?
Yeah, which is even a bigger shock.
It
because
is.
They
Yeah,
are
it is.
the quintessential like Queen Street, the man, hippie bunch.
Everybody needs money.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
true.
Yeah.
So for everybody listening, obviously,
We're gonna leave all that in.
all that in. We are.
Yeah,
Well, Max and Lights are old
If
friends.
people really want to know Lights, that's the kind of gold they're gonna get on this podcast.
Yeah.
Shit talking other people.
Well,
what
you
we
guys,
do.
you guys, aside from knowing each other for quite some time, you guys share a manager who's sitting here.
Ashley.
Babe of the century.
Yeah.
Ashley Potvin.
Yeah.
Shout out.
We mention Ash on the podcast a lot. Whenever Shane wants me to do something with Frank D'Angelo, I always say I need Ash's permission. And Ash has been working with Lights since how long? What?
We were both 19 when we started working together.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember we were going for beverages.
It's your 19th birthday.
That was my 19th birthday. Oh, sorry, I should be sharing this with you. Can we do this interview together? She needs a mic, actually.
Well, I'll share with Ash.
Yeah, we were having martinis on my 19th birthday when I first met you.
I pretended I liked martinis.
I did too, to be honest. I hated them. I haven't drank one since, I don't think. Good memories starting out in the industry together. Interesting. Now the truth comes out. We both hate martinis.
Yeah.
I've never seen you drink one.
It only took a decade.
No,
for you guys
for this to
really-
come out.
Out of politeness, they kept drinking
Yeah.
them with each other. I thought you
It's
liked
horrible.
martinis. I thought you liked martinis. Yeah.
I don't even know you. Yeah, so and now we're 50 and still working together.
Yeah, 3 decades in the works.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we for our listeners, we share a manager and also a Canadian label.
Yeah.
We've shared the stage many
That's
times.
right,
And
yeah.
we're all pals. It's all,
Yeah,
it's
we
all one
are.
big
We're
gang
all
at this
family.
point.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, and I feel like through that familial connection, you were kind enough to be the very first guest on this podcast.
It's good memes, man.
Very first
I remember
one.
that.
And so, like, 75 episodes later,
Has it been that many episodes?
it's been a few.
You guys
yeah.
are busy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, enough about us. What's changed with you in 2 years?
Well, the new record, new comic, like this is the first time I put out a comic and I've spent so much time on it. Like last year I did nothing. I just sat at home and made this comic. It took a few months to write and then applied that all to the music. And then I started drawing and I was just literally sitting at home drawing. Every page takes like 10 hours.
We also share the same booking agent, I want to say. Did you have to just turn down lots of shows? Because I'm sure the offers come in.
You know, I actually don't know.
were
Ashley
you
would know
shielded
that
from
better.
that?
That's a good question.
Ash?
Yeah.
I would
This
say,
is
yeah,
great. This
you
is great.
did, you did.
Yeah, interesting.
You needed room to do it. And also
Wait a
Yeah.
second.
go
Should we get her a mic? We can get her a
Yeah,
mic. Let's do
yeah.
it. No, we're getting her a mic. We're getting her a mic.
Yeah, get off your phone. No, I think so. I mean, I would say that there's not often that in an artist's career you can just do nothing.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
you weren't doing nothing, but not
I mean,
playing
I was
shows.
working behind the scenes, but yeah, like in terms of being out there, it was a great chance to grow out my eyebrows. Did that.
Oh,
Took a few
nice.
months.
Yeah,
what
you did
else
some
I
no
do?
makeup pictures.
Did a bunch of no makeup stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
I was like left makeup off for a while. It was great to get in touch with my real face again. But yeah, I didn't do anything.
Did you
for
get
that time.
anxious by not playing shows? Or did you like it?
I liked it for a while, but then I think I got a little too, like I got cabin fever. We live in a forested area, bear problem.
Literal cabin fever. You were in a cabin.
Yeah, it was, yeah, definitely. And I got really accustomed to like staying at home and I was just like, I'm thankful for the job that I have because I don't know if I could do this every day.
Yeah.
But everything in moderation, right? Like I started cooking a little bit,
Hey.
learned how to do a few things in the kitchen.
What's your specialty?
Really, vegan shepherd's pie. I started
Ooh.
cooking vegan. It's good.
Nice. Are you vegetarian?
Well, I'm dabbling.
dabbling.
Trying. Can't go in cold turkey.
We actually the pod.
No turkey. if you're
No
vegetarian.
turkey.
Good work, Mike. The whole pod is various stages of vegetarian.
Is it?
I'm a
Oh,
month and a
interesting.
half
Lifestyle.
in.
Have you? Have you?
Interesting.
I haven't touched. I've abstained.
Really?
I know.
Good for
Well,
you.
at this point, I'm just
Interesting.
trying to outlast my wife because she laughed at me when I said, "Oh, I'll never eat meat again." Can you imagine?
Is this from watching What the Health still or no?
Well,
That's
nah,
influenced a lot of people I know.
I watched Oakjaw on with that big
Was that
pig.
more of an influence than What the Health for you?
It just not really an influence, but basically Shane was going on about What the Health and Frank
Yeah.
D'Angelo of all people, and then so he stopped, and then you said you were dabbling because Lauren's a vegetarian.
Yeah. Yeah, Lauren's vegetarian, so when I'm with her, I won't eat meat.
But when you're away, you go
Half
crazy.
the time, yeah.
We're half turkey.
So do you find that she'll judge you if you eat meat?
She's not too judgmental, but I think she'll be a little disappointed if.
Interesting.
So what I do is when we're on tour, I just send pictures. Every time I go out to like a vegetarian restaurant
Yeah.
or do the right thing, I take a picture.
Do the right thing.
Yeah, I send her a picture. And she can be proud of me. So that's good.
Interesting. Well, I think it's a good experiment for everybody in this day and age. I think we all know the environmental impact of meat and obviously
Yeah.
the health impact of meat. So I think it's like a lot of people are trying. I think it's important.
Yeah, and it's also like obviously the right thing to do.
And
It's-
just do the right thing, yeah.
like our friend Nick Rose was like, the thing about being vegetarian is like, yeah, it's obviously the right thing to do. It's like you can't. There's not much of like a argument on the other side.
Right.
But
Other than that, it tastes really good.
yeah, other than
know?
like I love Texas barbecue
Yeah,
more than
I
life
know,
itself.
I
Yeah,
know.
Exactly.
Exactly. So I mean, my parents are fully plant-based. They've been plant-based for a long time. So they've shown me how it can be done really easily. And I've been, easing my way into it because you can't go in when you're on tour and stuff and you end up in Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
Staying across from a barbecue joint is like, this is the day of the week I'm going to have meat. You know?
And you'll eat what's there. It is very hard. We were just in Miami, and it was very difficult to find things to eat. So it was just like living on smoothies and beer.
Oh,
So I
for
was living
you,
very
it's
healthy.
crazy.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
healthy and drunk.
Yeah. That's actually really my nickname. Not really. I wish that the healthy part was in that nickname. So yeah,
Let's get to the comics and stuff.
let's talk about it. Well, here's the thing. I read the first 3 last night.
Did you?
I did. So
Awesome.
was I allowed to? I don't know.
You
Somebody,
are
I
more
was
than
giving
allowed
them.
to, yeah.
Well, now
I mean,
I
the
want
third
the
one's not
rest.
out yet, but you're ahead of the curve.
Are the other ones like printed and done?
No, I deliver the comic a month before they come out, and I just delivered issue 4. I'm finishing 5 and 6. 6 is a double issue, so it's like 55 pages of content. I'm still coloring 30 pages, but most of it's done.
Okay, cool. Well, I really, really like it.
Really? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I really appreciate like
do you
world
read
building,
comics?
and I don't read comics, but I love like long before it was a show, Game of Thrones, like
Yeah.
George R. R. Martin fantasy, like sort
Oh,
of
cool,
world
cool.
building
Yeah.
in general,
Yeah.
and sci-fi and sort of.
Interesting, because when I was researching for the project, I read a lot of books and watched a lot of tutorials and webinars and stuff. And one of the most influential books I think that I read was called Writing for Comics by Alan Moore. And Alan Moore, he wrote Watchmen. He's like a very iconic writer in the comic world, outside of the comic world too. And in this book, he basically said, like, before you create your plot line, you build the world. You understand the government of this world, the weather, what it's like, what the people are like, what they wear, what the commercials are like. Build your world inside and out, and then pick your wormhole in time through this world in which your plot occurs, and then everything falls into place. So I had this base idea for the story, and then before I continued with that, I made maps and created everything. And so the world is like this very present being in the whole story, even though it doesn't necessarily talk about it every step of the way. There's things that exist in this world that are never brought up in the comics. So I made the Instagram world. It's called Skin and Earth World on Instagram.
Oh, I know.
You've checked it out.
Well, I immediately so I'm reading the first comic, and then at the back end, it's like check out. Or maybe it was in the second one.
Yeah,
It was like
it
check
was in
out
the
the
second
Insta.
one.
So then I'm
Cool,
on the
that worked,
Insta
yeah.
and I'm like hitting the tags and I'm like,
Yeah, you can
man,
explore it, yeah.
The intricacy. I just really appreciated how much you could get involved. And it was the first time I
Yes.
saw the map of
Yeah.
the world. And
yeah,
it
and that was
pretty
one of the
awesome.
maps that I made when I was creating the world. And I'm like, I got to put these somewhere. So if you've never touched the comic or heard the music, at least you can still interact with the world and experience things. And I'll hide clips and Easter eggs all throughout that world.
Yeah, well, when we talked the first time, we talked a lot about you traveling as a kid and all that and being really into video games. Have you always been into comics?
Yeah, in different capacities. I started getting into comics from like Far Side and Herman and like
Oh, like the
Calvin
funny
and
pages.
Hobbes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I actually had the big graphic novels of those, and I loved how easy it was to convey emotion and an intention with like just a few lines, right? It's very simple. And then I got into more sci-fi stuff like Space Adventures and Magnus Robot Fighter and Barbarella and then Wonder Woman. And then I got into indie comics, and that was when I really started to understand the power of comics, because this medium is I think it's one of the most progressive mediums that exists, because like you can talk about issues that matter and not feel like you're hitting somebody over the head with it, right? Like most of the comics I read have like an important social message integrated into the story. I remember I was watching a panel by one of my favorite writers, G. Willow Wilson. She writes Miss Marvel, and it's a really, really great comic series for young girls. I think there's
Yeah, Brie Larson's going to be in the new movie, isn't she?
she's Captain Marvel. Yeah. So
Right.
Miss Marvel is like Kamala Khan. She's this little Pakistani superhero, basically, and she lives in New Jersey, and it talks about the dynamic of being like an outcast in school, and then finding out you have like abilities. It's just very good. But it's she was talking about that in that panel as well as at Comic-Con last year, how you can. It is a platform to talk about things that matter to you, and things that are important, and things that you want to see change in, and work it into your story.
Yeah, I think science fiction in general has always been kind of this like Trojan horse to
Yeah,
social issues. So
for
it's
sure,
like
exactly.
it takes
That's the
place
best way to-
1,000
yeah.
years in the future, but really we're talking about
you're
things that
commenting,
affect
yeah.
us today.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of
social issues.
commentary.
Yeah. So I guess functionally, like, I mean, you guys both obviously write records, write music. When you set out to do something like Skin and Earth, is it comic first and then I'm going to write music to support the comic?
It was the storyline first, the like very simple sketch idea of the story, and then brought that. I had it divided in 12 parts. It was like the intro, the romance, the fall, the whatever. I had it like named for the parts of the story arc that they were, and then started to fill the gaps with songs. I had like 3 or 4 songs for each gap, and I ended up writing like 55 songs or 60 songs or something.
Wow.
And picked the best ones for each gap in the story. So like track listing, we deliberate over track listing all the time. There was no deliberation here. It was like, this is the way it's going to roll out because this is the story.
And so like if it's going to be a song for a certain point in the comic, it's like lyrically it needs to sit somewhere like thematically. Would
Yeah.
you maybe take words that you had for something
yeah.
else and then apply it to something melodically that you're like, oh, that piece of music's better,
Yeah.
so it needs to move up here?
Yeah, it was all symbiotic all throughout the process. So like the basic idea for the story was there, and then started filling the gaps with songs, and then the songs would inspire visuals that would work their way into the comic, and lyrics that would work their way into the dialogue. And then I remember, like, take Skydiving, for example, the first song. That started with literally an image of them skydiving at the beginning, because it was sort of before I had created the apocalyptic world where you can't really skydive. There's no airplanes. So they were like skydiving at the beginning. I was like, oh, I need a song about skydiving that represents romance, sex, or whatever it may be. Because it's sort of like, that was the homage to romance comics. I collected romance comics for a long time. They're quite misogynistic, actually, but the visuals are really good. Like Rory Lichtenstein, they worked their way into his pop art and stuff. So it's been influential in my aesthetic when I do art. And so I wanted like a romantic song, and I was like, I'll write a song about skydiving. And then when I went to go start writing that part of the story in about skydiving, this is way too obvious. So scrapped the whole skydiving idea and wrote something completely different. But it all kind of just evolved as it went, one thing bouncing off the other.
As a songwriter, was it helpful that you had this sort of other narrative to sort of lean on instead of, because I find when you get inside your head, you're like, well, that one doesn't make sense logically to the story that actually happened. But when you're writing for a grander story that is clearly outside of your personal experience, it can actually be liberating because you're not being as hard on yourself.
100%. Like, I think part of the reason, full disclosure, that I wanted to do the project at the beginning was like, I've always worked with the same people, people that have, Tog Salter. I've done tons of music with him in the past. We know each other really well. We've had hours of countless conversations about our deep personal issues and whatever we're experiencing. So going into a writing session, you're laying it on the table with someone you know and who knows you. But I knew I wanted to start bringing in new influences and working with new people. And it scared me, the idea of going in and laying it all on the table with someone I didn't know. So I was like, okay, if I have this story in mind, at least I'll have a direction immediately. As soon as I go in, I'll be like, this is the part of the story where this happens, and this is the mood it needs to take on, and this is about her, not me. Meanwhile, I'm writing about myself.
They're clearly psychoanalyzing you.
Yeah,
and giving them this
suddenly,
bullshit story. No, I'm just kidding.
exactly. No, that's what it is. I was like, I don't really feel like Dr. Filling myself today, so I'm gonna
put it through that lens.
Shunt it through this character. Yeah, and it was really helpful in terms of having a clear direction in a session, because you can spend, I don't know, when you're writing music, how long do you spend figuring out what you're going to write about?
Yeah, a long time.
A while.
Yeah, too long.
Yeah, it's like you kind of walk around a bunch of topics and what people are talking about, and it was good because I mean, I think as writers and artists, it sucks to a degree writing about. You're kind of forced to write about what people think you're experiencing at that very time. So if I were to write an angry song or a song like Savage without the story around it, people would be like, oh, well, what's happening with your marriage then? Like, is your marriage screwed up? And then people would challenge that. Or, people just automatically want to associate it with your life at that very minute. And I think that it's frustrating. So it sort of like has backed me into a corner in the past where I feel like I have to only write about what people think they know about me.
Or pull punches on things you maybe want to express because it's almost,
Sure.
they're going to perceive it as super personal.
Exactly. That's
Right.
how people want to see it. And so I think there are always been a few topics that I've never felt free to talk about because I didn't want people to just think like directly associate that to what I was experiencing at that time. But we are multifaceted people. I've experienced anger, I've experienced heartbreak, and these are all things I understand. So yeah, I was able to write about things that I never was able to write about through this character, who ultimately is me in another dimension.
Well, this is what I was going to say. So, but ultimately, you are writing about facets of yourself. I mean, is the character you, or are you trying to disconnect and be like, no, that's somebody else? But really, like, is it coming from you?
she's for sure like the way she responds to things like I do. Like I write her based on my personality and how, you know, it's me raising the apocalypse. So she's maybe like rougher around the edges. And,
Sure.
but she's like, she is me in another world, and she's become, and I brought her to life in some capacity with the hair, you know, and the way that she dresses. So yeah, I think when people read the story, they'll get to know me a little bit just because of the way I would respond to things.
So, like, yeah, like in the comic, you know, the way that she interacts with Priest,
Yeah.
you know, it's like that's how you could see yourself.
She's
in
kind of
interaction.
goofy and doesn't take herself seriously, but she's also like very emotional and connected and
Yeah.
and flawed. Like she's got issues, but she like means well at the end of the day. And I think the bulk of the story, she's just looking for like self-worth and looking for hope in this place that's devoid of it, you know?
Yeah. I think like concept albums or big projects, like multifaceted ones with a comic and an album that correlates, and then, you know, songs match up with certain comics. That can be like a big undertaking. It can also be sort of intimidating. It can be a challenge. It can be sort of like risky because people are like, oh, a concept album. When you set out to do this, was there any trepidation in like, maybe this is not what people would expect from me? It's too big a project? Or do you see that challenge as like a positive? Like, I like the idea of taking on something that is very big.
I think it was more that. I knew it was going to be a big, challenging project. I think at the beginning, it's something I've always wanted to do, but I also didn't know how I was going to do it. And I had all these ideas of how I could maybe shortcut it initially. Like I was like, okay, maybe it'll be like 20 pages. And then the story grew into something that was a lot bigger than that. You can't tell in 20 pages. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll find someone to do the art. I'm like, well, I don't have money to pay someone to do the art and don't have the time. I have a vision already, so maybe I'll find someone to write it. Because I'd never written a book, let alone a comic, and understanding pacing and dialogue and all those kind of things are
Did you have an
challenging.
editor?
No, I did everything. I lettered and everything. So I read a bunch of books as much as I could, and then actually decided to reach out to Brian K. Vaughan, who I'm a huge fan of. He's an amazing comic book writer. He wrote Saga and Why the Last Man, which are both amazing titles. He's now writing for TV. He's doing some producing. He wrote and produced Lost, a couple of seasons.
Oh, very cool.
So I'm a huge fan of him. And we were going back and forth a little bit online before he disappeared from online. He disappeared. Oh, wow. Yeah, he left his social presence behind. But that's what writers
building
do.
his
They're
own narrative,
crazy. Yeah, you know. But I think he's a genius. And I was going back and forth with him a little bit. And then I finally popped the question. And he's like, yo, my wife will kill me if I take on another project. But like, I think you can do it. He's like, you're a writer already. I think you're capable of this. And because he believed in me, I was like, I guess I got to do it. You know, Brian K. Vaughan told me to do this thing. And then he gave me a few tips on how he panels out pages because, I mean, people have different styles. His style is usually five to six panels a page, 12 speech bubbles, not more than 2 or 3 lines of dialogue per speech bubble. So I took those tips and just kind of went for it and winged it, and you know.
Here's a question. This is more of an industry biz question. Maybe Ash can talk to it. When you tell the label you're delivering,
This is what I was kind of getting at, the pushback thing.
yeah, well, like how did the label react? Because you're with Warner Music in Canada and Universal. No, you Warner Music in the States and Canada you're with Universal.
Yeah.
Were they confused by it? Were they like, this is not a good marketing angle?
In my defense, I will say.
Oh, she hasn't even spoken.
She does
I didn't
sort of
tell
have
them yet.
the answer though.
Okay, go.
I didn't tell them at first. I didn't tell anybody.
So you just delivered music.
Yeah, only delivered music.
So do you think these are jams or not? That's all.
Exactly. And so when there was, and you can speak on this more too, but basically once there was a few songs people were excited about, and I was like, this is actually a concept record.
I think they've been so supportive and welcoming of the grander scheme because it creates all different avenues of interest that have been fun to explore. And as much as both pieces of art stand on their own, when you're used to artists coming in every day with promoting the same one song, one single, one whatever, if you can come in before the record's out and say, physically put a book down in front of them and they look at it, because you have to tell them 3 or 4 times that you actually did it all. Yeah. And that's what's crazy. And then when they're sitting beside you and they look at it and they're like thinking about how they probably couldn't do that, because it's really like impressive to look at it. It gives them so much more to talk about and to kind of dive in and feel like they are getting so much more out of the project, more out of you, because it's like right there.
Yeah. It's just content, and that's what I think labels want now, and everyone in the industry,
original
for that matter,
content too, because
it's
everybody
all
can make a
content.
goofy video or something like that. But
Sure. And I think, and actually, I remember we had a big kind of label-wide meeting down in the States when everyone was there, and I was presenting the project, and we had literally everyone from the team there, and yeah, it was just like.
Set that up for a second though. Do you present it personally? Do you stand in a boardroom in front of a bunch of like label people, and you have like your drawings and you have your vision, and so you literally present it like Don Draper and Mad Men?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I was that cool, but there was like a booklet printed out ahead of time with some imagery in it and some of the story and some of the rollout pre-planned. But I basically talk about the story, and I think it was cool because everyone was excited about the fact that there was more to it, and it's just an interesting new approach to releasing music. And one of the things that they said was, it's not, when people do things like this, sometimes it can be perceived as gimmicky or like kind of like a stunt.
Sure.
When it's just something you're disconnected to, and it's perceived as a way to just make money or a reason for people to listen to the whole record. But it's something I've always loved, and I did all of it. So.
Yeah, you're known as a bona fide nerd.
I love it.
So it's all in line with your branding. Nerd woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in reading like the 3 that I read, like they stand alone, and I guess that's sort of a fascinating thing because you make music and your fans have connected with your music, but also other facets of your personality. Did you make the record, I mean, obviously as a companion piece to the comics, but are you cognizant of the fact that it's like, well, there's people that are going to just want to consume the music.
For sure.
And there's going to be some people that maybe just want to consume the comic.
Yeah.
How cognizant were you of that when you were creating both? Like, do they need to stand on their own in your mind?
It developed into that. I think initially the comic was just going to be a sort of companion piece that inspired the content of the music and came out with maybe in the booklet there's like a little comic. And then the story started getting bigger and bigger and more important to me. And then I was putting more emphasis on making the comic something that was decent. Because I'm a fan of comics, my bar's really high. My work pales in comparison to the things that I read. But I was like, at least I might as well give it the best shot that it has. And then as the music started to get really great and the comics started to get great, I put more emphasis on making them be able to stand on their own and then just become that much better when they're put together. And now it's like you could pretty much read the comic and not ever know there was music, and vice versa.
Will the videos end up telling the full story?
Yeah, all the videos bring the story to life in some capacity, especially the first single, it's Giants. And that's actually
later in the
from
comic
issue
series.
5.
I know.
Yeah, so it was like bringing the story to life without giving that part of the story away was kind of challenging. But then all the other videos, whether it's like an in-world scene or if it's a reference to the comic or showing the comic semi-animated or ripping it out from the comics, it all brings it to life in some capacity.
Another thing that we were going to sort of ask about is just as far as like the process of music and how you've done things before. You talked about working with the same people before, but co-writes. Like, did you do co-writes with these songs? And then what does that look like functionally when you're like, you're going for someone that's ready to do a normal co-write and you're like, no, like, this is the deal.
It made everything so much more fun. It
Did
really
it?
did. Like immediately established, because I actually was touching on this earlier and I forgot to go into it because I tangented, but is that a word? I don't know.
I liked it.
Thank you. But yeah, it made every session really fun. I was able to go in with the perfect stranger and like emerge with a good friend. And it was really exciting. I met a lot of amazing, creative, talented people, and we made great music. Because I would go in and say, this is my story. These are the gaps I need to fill. Like, do any of these speak to you and things you're dealing with in your life? Like, what can we talk about? And then would show them some of the imagery that I was working on. And it was just an interesting new thing to bring into a session for people who essentially do this every day. Every day, like they're with a new person in a session, deliberating about what you're going to write about. And then you end up writing something that maybe you're disconnected to, but they all felt really involved. And a couple of them were so awesome. Like, Corin Roddick from Purity Ring, he's on the record. We had a song. Alan Wilkes of Big Data, we have a song on the record. My friend Josh Dunn played on a couple songs. Everyone just really wanted to be part of it. And good stuff came out of it.
Does this experience make you want to do another grand thing on whatever your next project is, or are you like, that was so much work? Because I just think about like writing one song and it kind of exhausts me. But
Just thinking about
just
it.
thinking about it.
That was one of the things that, like, as I was looking at the Instagram of the world, and then it's like you're tagging certain things and certain things unlock. I was just thinking about the sheer sort of like magnitude of the work. I was
Yeah.
just like, it's just such a big undertaking.
Yeah, there are 20 Instagram accounts attached to that, and I run all of them. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Honestly, I went down the
It's a lot of,
wormhole
like,
last
lists.
night. Yeah.
I live in a world of lists.
Yeah.
But no, it's awesome. It's super fulfilling, and it's a lot of work, but I do it and I love it, and I love every minute of it. And I think that's how you know you like what you're working on. And you know what I also love about it is, I don't know, like with music, say you're repeatedly creating and always making records and trying to challenge yourself there. But does it ever get frustrating always doing the same art form? And
Yeah,
you
that's
wanna
why I have
switch
this
it up?
podcast. It's fun.
There you
It's
go.
fun
Exactly.
to diversify a little bit.
Exactly.
And one thing energizes the other thing, and then
Exactly.
and it also lets you figure out what you like and what gives you energy. Okay, and
100%.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're onto an idea that you're excited about, you have endless energy. And if
Yeah.
and if you're feeling like an idea has been done 100 times
Yeah.
before, then you get tired from it and you want to take
And you
want
wanna
to
try something else, yeah.
Get to the next thing.
Because there's a muscle, a creative muscle, and you can only work one side of it so many times before you have to work another side of it, and that lends to the other, and it makes the whole muscle stronger as it is. And I think now that I've started doing this, when I get tired of music, I'll work on drawing, and then when I'm tired of drawing, I'll work on a remix, and when I'm tired of that, I'll write the more story arc. You know what I mean? Like it's just a constant
Yeah.
like whirlwind of creativity. Like it's this floodgate that's never going to close now. You know?
Yeah. I've also seen Max's comics, and it's just drawings of boobies on napkins.
At
How
least it's
dare
not
you
dicks.
tell them my secret?
Sorry, they're really nice. I think that eventually you'll get somewhere with it.
Did you see that Netflix show, Who Drew the Dick?
No.
What is that?
It's a Netflix.
Well, Master Dan shaking his head adamantly. back
It's not
there.
out yet. It's a trailer, and basically, it's like a Netflix original series that looks and sounds like How to Make Making a Murderer. Like, so it has that, but it's about a high school student who drew a dick, and there's like all these like interviews with the staff.
They're trying
and
to
other
get down
students.
to the bottom of it.
But like the trailer looks and sounds like Making a Murderer.
That's so good.
That is
And it's
very
hashtag Who Drew the Dick.
Wow.
It's called American Crime or something ridiculous. Like
I
that.
sent Ashley hand-drawn pictures of dicks very often.
I got one yesterday.
Like, wait, how do you send them?
You know how there's like
show
a you have one on your.
Maybe
it's like
we can.
the
I know we
dr-
have some signs, some posters and stuff. Maybe we can just get a
Perfect.
signed.
Yeah, I love,
dick.
I love
that
it.
would be hilarious.
Very relevant to the project.
Are we giving these sign things out after or before they listen? People that are listening right now.
After.
So if you're
A hand-drawn
listening,
light stick.
and you
could
get a
that.
hand, you will get
an
some
original
Yeah.
edition.
You'll get signed Skin and Earth stuff, but you could also get an original hand-drawn dick from the lights.
This is good.
This is great
This is
stuff.
the
good
content
promo.
people listen to this.
I know.
Yeah, and maybe some of Max's hand-drawn boobies on
There
an
we
napkin.
Go. There we go.
Done
It's working
and done.
together.
Hashtag all of this.
Yeah. Hashtag who drew the dick.
Yeah. Sweet.
Okay, let's wrap this up.
Okay, well, we're going to ask one more life question then,
Okay.
and sort of like the minutia of how you do your work. So the last time we talked about touring as being a mother and having a family.
A
getting on
very
the
new
road.
mother. It was, how's Rockin' now?
Honestly, like last time when we did that podcast last time, she was probably like 6 months old or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like
It was
fresh.
crazy. Yeah.
So 2 years has passed. Has it gotten easier as Rocket has gotten older?
Yeah.
It has. So
Yeah, it actually has. She's a lot less dependent, and she's so smart and super inspiring. And I think as she develops her tastes, I can understand how to accommodate her more because she is her own person. And I'm able to go away and do things on my own. I actually have never had more ownership over my own life than I do have now. And I think that she's fed into that as well. So yeah, it's definitely gotten easier and more fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time.
Of course.
And all the best.
That was fun.
You get on that
Thank
plane
you
to
guys.
Vegas. Wait, you
Yeah.
got something to say?
No, that's all I got. This is
All
great.
right. Well,
Thank you,
have a
Lex.
safe
Thanks for
flight.
having me
Thank
on.
you for coming back, and hopefully in another 74 episodes or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Let's
Ash,
do
should
it
we
before
miss
then.
anything? Any talking points as the manager?
Well, I was gonna say when you were bringing up the Instagram world and having 20 accounts,
Yeah.
that we almost had to use your phone numbers to make accounts.
Oh, yeah.
you were
Yeah, I
I
was
do
about to
remember
tap
you
yours,
asking
yeah.
me.
Yeah,
You're
we
like,
were in the van going to Coachella, and she
Because to
used
make
mine
email
already.
address, yeah, I
you
used
needed
all
more
yours.
Yeah, and then I was
Yeah.
just like, guys, might need to dip into
Yeah.
your phones.
Every
for a
5,
minute.
you need a fresh number. They're like, you've made too many accounts on this number.
I would have sacrificed for the cause.
You know what? I might call you up for that.
All right, deal. Well, I was last night as I was going like through Instagram. My wife was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm in Madison Oasis. Leave me alone."
Yes.
Yeah. So it's good
Well,
stuff.
more to come. I'll be unlocking new things next week.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Welcome to the desserts. We are joined by our pop culture aficionado, Papa culture aficionado, Shane Christian Cunningham. Shane, what do you got for us?
Okay, so as you guys know, last week there was a little bit of a controversy with a disgruntled fan, or not a fan of me. This Hunter _ YWG said I wasn't a gentleman.
Not that you remember the screen name or anything.
No. Well, I went to add them under our Mike on Much account, under my own account, and
What any normal person does under these circumstances.
our Champagne Boys account too, and she wouldn't accept the.
And we know
friend
it's a she
request.
for sure.
I think so. It looked like a picture of a girl. Anyway, we told the story. The pod was released, and there was an outpouring of from our own fans.
Of support for you?
Yeah, they kind of took to what's that called?
iTunes
Reviews.
The iTunes reviews, and I'll read a couple right now.
Oh, well, go for it.
Alicia de Cesare, I'm assuming I'm saying that right. She said in the subject, just Shane, and she said, "The beginning and end of the pod are my favorite parts." Then Meg Murphy said, subject.
A little hurtful to me, but go on.
Shane is hilarious. I've referred a dozen people to this pod on the sole grounds of the Vanessa G encounter. It's laugh out loud stories on the dessert every time. Can't wait for Papa Culture Baby Tales. Keep it up, guys.
Vanessa G, the former Bachelor.
Yes, that's a great
contestant.
story.
Yeah.
Eddie Delasepe.
So, that made me feel good.
The lesson there is when you desperately pander, people will end up putting comments.
It's true. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's what I've learned.
The squeaky wheel gets the comments.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're great. We think you're great.
We think you're a gentleman.
Thank you.
We know the real Shane.
Yeah, you overcompensating again, Max?
I never do that.
So, I've been in total gentleman mode, and obviously with all of this, why is that funny? With all this Harvey Weinstein stuff going around, I think we should all be extra gentlemanly. Women have had a tough go of it this last little bit.
Since the beginning of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
centuries.
And my sister, is no different. She had a man in Vegas kind of pee on her bed, and he lit up a smoke and wouldn't leave the room, and he was smoking in the room.
These days, what's ruder?
So, as you guys can see, but the listeners can't, Tiffany, my sister, is here.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you.
This is a natural. Thank you for coming all the way from Hamilton, Tiff. It's good to see you.
And so she's newly single, and I think my goal here is to kind of find her a man through the pod.
A gentleman,
Yes.
we hope.
You guys are familiar with the Howard Stern Show.
Yeah.
A big inspiration for me is Fred from the Howard Stern Show. He went on a contest called Dial a Date that Howard was running and met his wife of 30 years from that joke contest. So people who think this maybe is a joke or a gimmick, I actually think we could find Tiff.
Love of my life.
Yes.
I love this. This is we've never done this on the dessert before.
So I know I do like this too because dating can be very hard.
Like Tiff's 37 years old. She just had her birthday,
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
but she has no kids. She's never been married. When did you have your first beer?
At 35.
35, she had her first beer. Tiff and I didn't date growing up. Like we didn't date in high school or anything. So, she has a low count of guys she's been with, which some guys think that's reassuring. I kind of like that. She's very healthy. She's very good with her money. She owns a condo. She owns a car that she bought. So she's she's a good catch.
Responsible adult.
Responsible
job.
adult. You have things. That's amazing. A lot of people don't have things.
And when we were growing up, Tiff was raised kind of as the guy in our house. So she's been in the military. She has a black belt in karate.
I think I knew that actually.
Yeah.
So
And
okay,
she's worked at Stelco. She's
a handy person.
Yeah.
And so okay, so just so we know what's up. So you had this Vegas experience with this guy who you thought was a gentleman. Turns out he's not so much of a gentleman, and you're like, all right, it's over.
Yes.
Some version of that.
How
Yes.
long did you know him before you went on vacation with him?
I think maybe almost 2 months, but at the month mark, everything was going all right. Then I stayed over a few times and just a few things started bothering me.
Okay. And then when did things start going bad on this trip?
Well, they were bad before the trip.
Yeah, you know that old expression when your relationship's
On the rocks.
on the rocks, you just go to Vegas and get wasted. Yeah.
He forgot his wallet also, right, on this trip, and
That's-
lost his passport while on the trip.
And the
Oh,
credit
no.
cards fell out, yes, of the wallet.
That old trick. Yeah.
Okay, so you wanted to go to a hockey game with him. You're all excited about it.
Yes. We went to the concierge, said, he was under the impression you get them for $20.
Hockey tickets, yeah.
So, I said, you know what? You just gave me triple shots of whiskey and I'm totally drunk right now, because that's another thing that happened. I'm not a big drinker. And when we got there, he gave me 2 triple whiskeys with Pepsi. So I didn't realize I was drinking that much. So I couldn't walk and I got kicked out of a restaurant.
For being too drunk.
Yes.
You are Cunningham.
You gotta be pretty drunk in Vegas to get kicked out of somewhere for being.
Tiff doesn't drink, really. Okay, so that's another thing. It's not like she was just unruly. She was like passed out.
Oh, okay.
So this guy gets upset when he finds out the ticket price is actually $70.
Yes, and we waited in line. It was about a mile long.
Mhm.
Get there, and then he said, no, I'm not spending $70. We made our way back. I said, okay, you know what? I'm not feeling that great anyway. So we walked back. He's down talking me, saying I'm the worst person. I'm disorganized. Why didn't we get the tickets?
Hurtful words, yeah.
Coming from a guy who's lost his passport and
Yeah, you're disorganized?
yeah.
Exactly.
Not
So-
a gentleman.
So then we get back to the hotel, and then he grabs the bottle from duty free, goes down with the open bottle,
Of
and
alcohol,
then
yeah.
he comes back and says, in the middle of the night after I heard the cops bring him up, he says,
Okay.
I just talked the cops out of arresting myself and some other people.
Minorities.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right, so he's trying to proposition himself like he's a bit of a hero at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not all heroes wear capes.
About 3 hours later, I wake up to a sound and yelled, "Are you peeing on my bed?" And yes, he was.
Had he revealed himself to be a reckless urinator before this incident?
Because
No.
some people do that.
You know what?
Some heroes should put down plastic sheets.
My mom's old boyfriend did this. Do you remember Pat?
Yeah, my mom also had a boyfriend who was peed the bed also. Yeah.
No, he opened her bedroom door, peed,
On the
and
floor,
then,
yeah.
and then went back to bed.
Yeah, he didn't make it to the bed, man. All
Okay.
right, but point is, I guess, this guy wasn't the catch that he seemed in the beginning, because you were really liking this person in the beginning.
How did you meet him?
This was Plenty of Fish.
Okay, so you're on like a dating site, Plenty of
Yes.
Fish. Do you use Tinder and all that stuff?
Yes.
Okay, so if in fact we are going to find a new man for Tiff, all you need to know is that you don't have a lot to, you're not following a real winner. So ultimately, you're going to look great coming in.
Yeah.
That's true.
You just have to pee in a toilet, I think, and you're already an improvement over the last fella.
Okay, but so Tiff's problem I find, because I was using her Tinder for her. I was kind of like ghost
I remember
Tindering.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
The huge thing at one point was Tiff was getting very sad that no men were taking her out to restaurants.
Oh,
so I
yeah.
get hell bent on finding her a man who's actually going to take her to a restaurant, and
Treat her
pay
nicely.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the first date I had been on. This sounds sad. Where a guy had taken me out to a restaurant
That's-
at 36.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? It's a testament to sometimes you just gotta, say this is my favorite spot. Take me there.
Because
And-
Tiff's very passive, right? So you can kind of walk all over.
I
if
have
you
no
want.
low expectations, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the date, Messa.
So he just comes and he says, I couldn't stop laughing at that first line. You just so got me. Just before we came here, I was looking at our texts again, and it was just the best line ever. And what was that line?
I had a lot of gems in that. I was proud. I was almost jealous I wasn't on Tinder at that moment. Yeah.
And what did you say to that?
I said, I know. It just,
Just came to
I'm
me.
just a funny girl.
Yeah, I told Tiff, I was like, before you go on this date, just so you know, you have a very quick wit, okay? So like study the notes and like try to stay in line with this line of humor. Were you able to do that?
Yeah.
Did you see the text messages?
You got to hear this. Yeah, I did have to review them beforehand just so I knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
So during the dinner, he says, "Oh, I need to go put more money in the parking meter, right?" So it's right behind Mulberry, that parking lot. So I give him some change. He didn't have any. He's getting the dinner anyway. So he's gone for half an hour. He got lost. He was down on Barton somewhere.
No, no.
Well,
Did
he
the police bring him back?
So the food's waiting.
starts pissing on your food.
The food's waiting. I'm going, he's coming back, And so I called him. I gave him directions back to the restaurant. So
so he
I couldn't believe that happened. Like, it was just so funny.
and was there no second date?
No,
Did he get a smooch at the end of the night?
no.
But he paid for the meal.
Yes.
Mission accomplished.
And he set me up with another guy
Oh.
that picked me up at my place, which was really, that was
You
the first
mean
time.
literally though, right? Oh no, because you
No.
guys always carry
Later
you. I
that
see.
night, he carried me to the bed.
Whoa, Tiff. I'm the TMI guy here.
For some reason,
Carried me to the
about 8 guys have carried me to a bed. They,
I gave the whole spiel how you're this innocent flower. What's going on?
but I didn't do anything with them. They
Oh.
just picked me up. The one guy
Bit of
carried
a
me up
tease.
2 flights of very long stairs. 2 flights of long stairs right over his shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
After being in a hot tub out overlooking the
These dates sound incredible now. You couldn't get someone to buy you dinner. Now you're doing everything. It's like Fabio taking you away.
Yeah, but no, nothing ever happened. But no, the
Why
guy
are you
picked,
winking at me?
the guy picked me up at home and went to Chicago style pizza, which was also another favorite of
Yeah, I
mine.
set that dinner up.
Yeah, that was great.
So, Tiff, are there any what's on the wish list for a good guy? Do you have anything in particular that you like or you don't like? Height.
That is excellent, Max. I do like height.
Would you
Taller
like-
guys?
So basically, Tiff might be embarrassed, but kind of like you're her ideal man. I think Max.
I actually thought I was coming here
To get set up.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man.
So I think basically she wants like you, but you're in a relationship.
I'm
now
in a
still?
relationship.
Curly hair.
Curly hair, 6 feet tall, roughly.
Voice of an angel.
Yeah, the singer of a massively successful rock band.
Yep. My favorite band of all time. You remember when I gave you that hat? That
Yeah.
Hamilton hat?
Of course.
Sense of humor is big.
Yeah.
Okay. Bigger than height, maybe some might say. Go on.
See, Mike's a funny guy.
Okay, here's a question. What if they have a kid? Would you
That
be open to that?
that could work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
If
Because
I-
you don't want children of your own, but you're willing to look after someone else's child.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Now
great.
I would
Given the
be
right
willing to
situation.
have a child if I really loved that person, but
You're opening the door to kids now. Wow.
well, I don't rule anything out.
Oh, I didn't know
Open-minded.
this.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good character trait for the
Okay.
fellas listening.
How do we get people in touch?
Tiff, some questions are for you.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Should we Instagram me?
What,
Yeah.
you want to say your Instagram handle?
Let's give people her Instagram.
Sure.
Are
Okay,
you
I don't know it. So
are you a
must say
public
it.
profile?
I know it now. I just am new to Instagram for the last year.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. It's Tiffany Rose Cunningham.
That's it?
It sounds
Yes.
like there's more, but no.
There's no underscores or anything. It's just at Tiffany Rose Cunningham.
Yes, I was so lucky that was available.
Is that your middle name, Rose?
Yes.
Nice name.
TRC, baby.
I like that.
Yeah.
So
Maxie, yeah.
Break it up, you two. Max, you're in a relationship.
I know,
Calm
I know.
down. You know, Tip, you're the way you look. How would you describe it? You're 5'7",
5'8",
5'8". So
Wow.
you're tall. You're slender.
average.
Average. Okay. You've got kind of flowy, frizzy hair. Not frizzy. That's a bad word.
oh yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of cool look.
It's wavy.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just post a photo of Tiff on our Instagram.
I'm not
handle.
I
sounding
guess
that
that's
great.
the
I think
easier
that's probably
way
the
than
easiest way.
describing it.
Growing up, you two, how much do people say that you guys looked alike?
Just we have the same skin tone and like I guess eyes
sort
are
of.
like.
Yeah, you look. Another thing you do, and I just discovered this for myself. You hug the same way because I saw Tiff out in the parking lot, and Shane, you have a very signature one-handed hug.
Non-committal.
We have the same legs. I've always
Yes.
really held on to that.
Yeah. So hopefully all this stuff turns on some guys out there.
I hear you have the same legs as your bro. Here's a question. So Shane's been doing this pod now with us for 79 something episodes, 78 episodes. What do you and your family think of Shane's desserts?
Well, you know what? I have not heard this, and I'm sorry to admit that.
What? Tiff doesn't listen. Thanks for
I have
the
not
downloads.
heard it.
You've never heard the pod?
Not heard the dessert.
All right. Well, anything else, Tiff? This whole segment's a bit of a bust, but
No, it's gonna be great.
I'm sorry.
We came here with a purpose.
Yeah,
You know, to find.
Hey, it's only a bust if someone doesn't reach out and you don't make a connection.
so Tiff, usually we like to end on some sort of funny note that just cracks us up. This is your segment, so I'll leave that to you this week.
I think that you
Uh-oh.
are the best person to talk about this and about what I want in a man.
All right.
I just want to clear it up, though. Nothing happened when I was carried to the beds.
Sex-wise.
Yes.
All right. What about a smooch?
No.
Okay.
Urine?
No.
That's it. That's all. That's our episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much to Tiffany Cunningham for coming on our show today.
Tiffany Rose Cunningham.
At Tiffany Rose Cunningham.
Ow!
That's Tiffany. You can find the Mike on Much podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Mike on Much. Please leave a comment and ratings in iTunes. It really helps the show grow. And also just tell your friends about it, because if you think you might have a kindred pod friend, what the f***? My brain is turned off. Oh, honestly, I'm so fucking zonked right now. Anyway, just, do the thing on the internet. Huge thanks to Jenna Gregory, who provides the artwork, and Tara Paquette, who puts it all together. Also, Greg Stewart, Dan Carruthers, Justin Stockman, the whole damn gang.
The Mike on Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman, and I am your host, Mike Veerman. See you next week if we don't die on the weekend.